part of what we were actually chatting about prior to jumping on the call today is Chris had realized that you have a formula for decision making.
Yes.
I'd be curious just to learn a little bit more about that and how you've applied that into Killer Spin specifically.
Okay, so that is true. So I wrote another weird book lately on algorithms. It's a quantitative method for doing decision making in digital, what I call digital capability portfolios. It's kind of using the same math that quantitative traders use, but applied to digital investments. But this is the formula we use, is that results equals the quality of strategy plus execution divided by time. So you always start with specifically what you want to get accomplished. You create a strategy that makes you unique and loved as in trusted in a category by a customer. You create an efficient execution engine, which are people, processes, tools, and facilities. And then you set a time frame, because there's an inverse relationship between results and time, which is, by the way, that is why time is money.
Yeah.
So that is the high level of the equation. There's more to it, but that's the high level.
Right. And do you have a specific use case in mind or example that?
Anything we do has to fit that formula.
Really?
So with Killer Spin, we have something called an innovation lens. So before we take anything to market, there are like 8 steps that we go through before we take anything to market. And off the top of my head, one of them is, does this involve what we call skill, thrill, or chill? Does it involve learning or equipment? Does it create excitement? That's a thrill. Or is it chill? Does it create some kind of, I call it mental relaxation or rejuvenation? Does it fit our economic model? Will it create aspiration or a memory with our customers or employees? Does it solve an emotional or financial problem? Can we do it better than anybody else in the world? So we have these very strict, let's say, criteria that is related to our innovation engine. And innovation is ways about, to me, it's creating some source of value, new value, aligned to revenue, cost, risk, or service quality. So we are pretty algorithmic, I would say, in all the decisions that.
Say that again, Robert.
Okay, so that, to me, innovation is about creating in value in one of 4 categories: revenue, cost, risk, and service quality. So revenue and service quality, obviously, you get your money. That is related to stakeholder experience. The experiences of your customers are what determine the revenue side of the equation. What you keep relates to what I call lean operations, and that's the mitigation of risk and the management of cost. And you do that by understanding all the components of cost. So there's a bunch of geeky math. I'm happy to send you. I'm afraid I'd bore you with it. That involves a bunch of Greek letters: delta, alpha, gamma, theta, all kinds of stuff.
That makes great sense. What are the values that you guys live by? Anything? Is it just is it verbal? Is it written? Do you practice your values?
I would say the values of the company are where we want to be a place where the most talented people in our profession want to work. And we're a trusted partner to our customers. That's the core. So not to do anything that if it was in the newspaper, you would be embarrassed by it. Because I think that if you don't have good character, people with good character won't come to work with you. And
Sure.
No company can grow to me, faster than its ability to attract the right kind of people, and where you have customers that you can create an emotional connection with. And I would say phoniness comes through. Employees can tell, customers can tell. So in my view, it's also being about something bigger than yourself without, I'd say some corny stuff that people talk about that they don't really mean. It's just marketing. So for us, one of the things that we're going to be doing, rolling out, is an agent program. And we're going to ask people that if you're going to buy from us anyway, please consider buying from one of our agents. Those agents are going to be young people with special needs. Because what happens with young people with special needs is after they become 22 and they have to leave high school and these programs, there's nothing for them. So as a parent, and I actually have a daughter with autism, what you're concerned about is, I would say, the opportunities and the dignity of your child once they get out of school in that kind of protective cocoon. So we're trying to make sure that they have employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. And we think that if we can do that and we can be impactful, maybe some other people will copy us. And these young people will have opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. The other thing that also I try to do is to go find young people and help them start in business. People that have, I think, some entrepreneurial capability, but they need some mentorship. They need some people that will be hard on them, because listen, business is hard. Not that you're going to be nasty to them, but you're just not going to accept anything that's less than being world class. And that's what I say to people that we try to be helpful to. I'm willing to help you because obviously people help me. But if you're not willing to be world class, to figure out what it takes to be world class, and to put in the effort to be world class, you may not be world class today. If you're 26 or 27 or 28 or 30, it is unlikely that you're going to be world class today unless you're an athlete. But in business, that's going to take time. But if you're not willing to commit yourself to the journey, I'm just going to go find somebody else who is.
I love it. I love it, Robert. I say exactly the same thing to my teams. I said, if any business we're in, if we can't strive to be world class with the goal of being world class, right, and then we don't want to be there. So I mean, if it's a business we get into that becomes a very commoditized business that we can't differentiate from, probably not the place we want to be very long, right? If any business we're in, we want to strive to be different and better than the competition in any way we can, and with the goal of being world class. When people say what's world class, I mean, some people mistaken that as being the number one best of the best in the world at one thing, and hey, that's a great goal. But being world class, in my opinion, is being one of top 1%, in my opinion, in the industry you're in, still striving to be number one. And I think that you can reach that goal, kind of like you said, top 5%, top 1% in your space. You're gonna have a lot of fun. You're gonna be successful, and you're gonna create a lot of opportunity. And when you look at your business, where do you feel you're in the top 1% in? Killer Spin to me seems like you got.
I would say that in the areas where we focus, we are number one in the world. We're sure we know about that. We created the designer category. We're number one in the world in that. When we first created the media category, like we know one of our YouTube clips had 17.5 million views. That was number one in the world by far. The educational series we had was number one in the world.
Well, what was that clip that gave us 17.5 million views?
I'm sorry?
What type of clip was that?
It was a competition clip that we had. We had an event at a place called Mohegan Sun, which is a casino outside of, it's in Connecticut. And they actually wanted us to do a table tennis event to entertain what they call their Asian whales. Because if you're in the gambling business, Chinese are really important customers.
Yeah.
And then the ESPN filmed it, and we put this clip on YouTube. So I know in the areas where we're number one in the world. In fact, if we don't have the chance to be number one in the world, but it's a necessary product, we try to push it to free so that we include it in an offering. And in fact, we have what I call a lanyap strategy. I don't know if you've heard of the word lanyap.
No.
You ever see, used to be a TV show called The Cajun Cook. I don't know if you saw that. But lagniappe is a French word, or maybe a Cajun word, and it means a little extra. It's the equivalent of a baker's dozen. You know, a baker's dozen is 13.
Yep.
13 donuts or whatever it is. So, you know, it's just a little extra. That's kind of, it's a surprise that creates a connection with the customer.
Mm-hmm. Cool. How do you spell that?
Oh, wow. It's definitely not phonetic. Hold on a second. I'm going to tell you right now. Give me
Laniak?
No. It's not anything like that. L-A-N. Yeah. It's Lagniappe.
Yeah, I would have never gotten there.
Yeah. In fact, if you type Lanyap, it will come up.
Cool. I like that word. It's awesome. What else you got for him, Robbie?
Well, I think that what I'm always curious about, just being a futurist by heart and inherently in me, I'm interested in knowing, I guess, your future roadmap for potentially new entrepreneurial endeavors, or adding a third company onto your resume here.
Well, there's two things. I am looking at changing the company. So EKI Digital is a company where we've been kind of successful helping large organizations, I would say, find financial opportunity. We've helped companies identify billions of dollars in inefficiencies, and we call revenue, cost, risk, and service quality. We kind of have an algorithmic approach to doing that. So the last month I've been writing it's almost like it's a combination of a new business plan, and it's been in my head for a while. And what's the word I'm looking for? Academic paper on using the quantitative method for discovering opportunities, and we call these digital capability portfolios. So it's essentially saying you can use their companies like Citadel, like there's a company called Renaissance Technologies, pardon me, that was started by a mathematician called Jim Simons. He's the most successful investor in history. He was a mathematician, and he started the company in his late 40s. And after he takes his 5% admin fee plus his 44% of earnings, his customers he's returned 38% per year to his customers.
What?
Yeah. What?
Yes. You have to look them up. There's a really good book. It is called The Man That Solved the Markets. It is about quantitative. There's something called the quants in trading. And what they're doing is in fact, I wrote an article called Algorithms and the Death of IT, where it shows a corollary between what happened in the trading world, where there's no more floors anymore. There's no more trading floors really anymore. It's all computing. It's all computers now. And what's going to happen in IT. So I believe that all systems are natural systems, and you can use math to discover things that even why people make certain decisions, even politics. I've even created a factor in this formula, I would say, for politics in organizations. It is associated with all kinds of stuff, risk factors associated with
politics don't work well in organizations, does it? And it doesn't really work.
No,
well.
actually, unfortunately, politics is a very big part of organization, because if you think about politics as individual incentives, people behave based on the incentives and constraints in their environment. So this is why, for instance, in our industry in technology, a company, let's say you've got a CIO and they know they've got to make $100 million investment in order to deliver some big new system or something like that. And they have two alternatives. They could use IBM. IBM is going to cost them $100 million, plus it's probably going to go over by 50%. Or they could come and work with EKI Digital, and we'll say we'll do it for 70. Now, if it was just math, we would be the obvious choice. However, if that CIO knows that there's risk, and you say to him, this thing blew up, why did you hire that little company? That was his decision. If he hires IBM, it's like, I hired IBM. That's the way the world works. People will go and do things to avoid personal risk. That is a part of companies, and people do it all the time.
Businesses I'm in though, we constantly focus on eliminating politics within business, where there's accountability, you take risk, and you learn from the mistakes you make. And we expect people to be accountable, but yet take risks. We trust you to take risks. Lose and fail once in a while. Hopefully we're going to learn from the failures, as long as they're measured. They're not killer failures, right? I can't stand when politics are in small and mid-sized businesses.
Well, like I said, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. However, this is what the importance of culture. To me, you have only three things in business. You have stakeholder experiences, right? What you take to market and how you treat your customers. You have lean operations, which is not making money, not wasting money in the delivery of your products or services to your customers. And then you have culture, because culture spreads both toxins and nutrients throughout your organization. If you have a culture of discipline, not a culture of toxicity, but a culture of discipline, where people know how to make decisions, not that it's just some, I said, random bunch of guesswork, but you have a framework of decision making. So if you follow the decision making, by the way, you cannot do experimentation without failure, and you can't make progress without experimentation. So therefore, you need to have, in my view, we have what I call an innovation budget. An innovation budget is where you don't exactly know you cannot guarantee the outcome, but you use, I'd say, the scientific method to work your way through to new offerings or new solutions, and understanding that it's not going to be perfect the first time, but at least you're using more of a scientific method as a part of your innovation process. And too often people don't do that. They're undisciplined. And when you're undisciplined, bad things start to happen in your culture. You start to blame shift and have fights and be protective over territory because you have a toxic culture.
Can you repeat that first part? So it was the experimentation you can't have without failure. What was
you cannot have experimentation without failure. You can't do it. You have to go through a process. You create a hypothesis, or something is based on a framework that you've established. In our case, we have an innovation lens. So one of the things in our innovation lens is the customer has to be able to enjoy this within 20 minutes of receiving this product. So if somebody comes up with an idea and the customer has to put together 100 different parts, it may look beautiful, but if it takes them 2 hours to put together, you shouldn't have made that decision. You should have known better in the first place. Then you're being intellectually lazy versus going through an experiment. You didn't quite get what you want, because sometimes you'll learn if you go through experiments, disciplined experimentation that's aligned to your innovation engine. You may learn things that you can use in another process or another product. It is not always going to be, experimentation is not always going to be perfect. But if you don't do experimentation, you become commoditized very fast because you don't have the ability to invent, and all you can do is copy. And if you're copying, then automatically you're using a commoditized product or process. Commoditization is fine when it comes to lean operations, right? You don't need to reinvent everything, right? You can use best practices or things like that. The customers don't reward you for that. They reward you for variation of offerings in, let's say your product offerings. But the fact is, if you can buy a piece of software that's you can live with, like I'm sure you use Word. Nobody's going to go in, which a programmer could come up with an alternative for Word, but that would be a waste of effort in an area where you're not going to get any value. So that is the difference between stakeholder experience. That should have a high degree of variability, which requires experimentation and innovation, versus lean operations, where you want to have a very low amount of variability. You're trying to eliminate waste.
Yeah, and in innovation at any point, like as you're saying, you're going to fail. You're going to fail often if you're going outside the box and you're trying to swim away from commoditization, right? I mean, you're going to try things that are different, and you're going to fail. And with the failures, you're going to learn a little more, and eventually you're going to hopefully be in a place to do some things different than your competition. And we do that consistently with all of our businesses, and it costs money to do that. But if you have your customer's ear and your customer's trust, you can do that a lot, and partner with your customers. You'll build strong relationships with your customers as you're building new products and innovation. So I agree 100%. I mean, in a political organization, it's tough to do that because everybody's about covering their butt, and they're not, in my opinion, they're not taking the accountability, and because they're worried about their jobs, right? So I think small businesses, mid-sized businesses have the ability to do that. Large businesses sometimes get political and don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, you're smarter than me, Gary. That's why I'm on this side of the camera. And you
no.
Go.
I'm not. I just believe in innovation. I believe in experimenting and partnering with my best customers. And I think I see our bigger competitors, bigger customers in my space, bigger competition in my space, let's say, don't usually do that. They look at that as too high a risk without enough reward, because it costs money to do that, right? Sure. But when you do that stuff with your customers, you build better relationships with your customers. They can take ownership in the innovation also, which is really fun. So, Robbie, what else you got for our buddy here? He's got a lot of information, man.
I'm going to take my last question one step further. So I guess in thinking through the next phases, what seems to be more aligned with EKI, do you think that traditional computing power is going to be enough to capture in every variable that you want, or have you looked into the potential for quantum computing in that?
Look, I think there's a difference between quantitative analysis and quantum computing. My own view, there is already sufficient computing power for most businesses. Most businesses are not lacking computing power. Maybe Fermilab needs quantum computing, or, people in medicine or something like that. But for most businesses, they don't have a computing power problem. What they have is an architecture problem. They have a lack of architecture. What I would say when it comes to investing in IT, digital is an asset just like any other asset class. It should work the same way. If you were going to build a road or a bridge or a building or anything like that, what you would do is somebody with a need would say, hey, there's an opportunity. What's the opportunity worth? I'm going to create an opportunity profile, an investment opportunity profile. That investment profile said, here's what the benefit, here's what the investment's going to be, here's a roadmap to capturing it. It gets presented to typically an investment committee. they make the decision on whether or not they're going to invest in it. Once they do, then it goes to a design build manager. The design build manager is responsible for creating a blueprint that gets presented to the customer, which is a visualization of what the ecosystem looks like or the final product looks like at completion. Then they can give the same set of plans, which has different parts, to the carpenters, to the plumbers, to the electricians, to the steel guys, to anybody, to the furniture people. So everybody has a completed visualization of what this ecosystem looks like at completion. Then the design build partner decides, hey, this is the best trade for this, there's a best trade for that, there's a best guy to do this, and they manage it through completion. I've never met a CEO yet that has ever seen anything like the equivalent of a blueprint for how technology is going to serve their company. Not one that's a simple one that's on a piece of paper. You don't have to be an architect to be able to look at a drawing and say, oh, I get it, that's what that building is going to look like.
Right.
Okay, you may not understand all the, the load calculations and stuff like that that are embedded in there, but you can get a sense of what the thing is going to look like at completion. I've never met a CEO that has ever had anybody presented a blueprint. This is the role of technology in helping us make the work of delivering our services to our stakeholders more efficient. And by the way, that is the only thing technology can do for you.
Right.
So people make bets on technology without, it's like saying, hey, I need a building. Let me go throw up a building. Well, what's a building going to look like? What are the needs of the stakeholders who are involved in this? Can I see what it's going to look like in advance? What are all the components of cost in delivering that? It's very immature. It's a very immature industry.
So
very fragmented.
So Robert, you've been around algorithms a long time, and before algorithms were really, something to be talked about. And what is it? What do the algorithms of yesterday have in common with AI of today? I mean, is it where it began, or tell me about that, will you?
Well, listen, people have to understand what AI means. All that is, AI, artificial intelligence, means algorithmic opportunity identification. Somebody comes up with a set of algorithms that go into a set of data and discover opportunity. In fact, if this AI really came out, in my view, of the financial industry and the whole trading world. Because what traders do is they determine what the theoretical value of an instrument is at a particular period of time. Let's say it's an option. I've got an option on the S&P 500. I'm going to buy a call or a put. So without getting too deep into that, you can calculate the theoretical price of that option based on where the market is, things that are happening in the market, how close to expiration are you. In fact, it's very much like insurance. Insurance is totally algorithmic. It's just a measurement of risk. And the relationship between you and your insurance company is the same risk between, in a financial market, a hedger and a speculator. What you're doing is you are paying a premium to an insurance company to offset your risk, right? If I get into a car accident, I could be injured and I could get millions of dollars of injury to somebody else or myself. So I'm going to pay my premium to offset my risk. Now, the insurance companies have to be able to calculate a portfolio of risk to determine what your premium is.
Sure.
If you are and it's the same thing, if there are factors that go into that. If you're a 16-year-old male, your insurance is going to be a lot more expensive than if you are a 45-year-old mother.
Unless you're buying term life insurance.
No. Now, in that case, if you're buying term life insurance, the opposite is the case, right? If you're 65, your term life insurance, is going to be a lot more expensive than if you're 25.
Exactly. I bought life insurance when I was 16 because somebody told me I should. I think it was like a $30,000 policy. It was a big deal because I didn't know if I'd ever be worth $30,000, right? And then recently at 56 or well, I just turned 57, I'm buying a bunch of life insurance again, and I've done it over my life, different times. And boy, you better get all life insurance you can while you're young because it gets kind of expensive. Even if
yeah, exactly. To me, it's the same thing. Those are just algorithms. And by the way, algorithms are not new. This is why I think there's nothing new under the sun.
So in our business, where we, in one of our businesses that Robbie was a big part of is site where we do the drone assessments of real estate all over the country, as well as now cell towers and easements and all kinds of stuff they're doing. We're trying to put that in a world where we're using AI to do a lot of the repetitive work, right? Repetitive engineering and repetitive assessment. And once we get there, it's going to be a really inexpensive product. It'll be a fun product to continue to grow. It'll probably be a SaaS product in the long run. But we need help on that side of it. Just leadership when it comes to technology and understanding how we build that AI. If anybody out there, that's strong in building AI like that, let me know.
Listen, I'm happy to help you. I have no value on this earth except for algorithms.
All right. Well, you know what? Hey, Robbie, we got to connect him with Austin and the team there.
It happens to be pretty valuable at this point in time. So I'd take the position pretty well.
Sounds like maybe a possible board member there, Robbie.
Yeah.
Listen, anything I can do for Superman there, I'm your guy.
Yeah, you're funny. Are you on any boards at all, Robert, or no?
Yeah, I'm on the board of the board of U.S. Bank, and I'm on the board of Chamber of Commerce and some other Business Leadership Council. And
how about any startups or business boards, like small business or businesses that need advisory board guys?
If somebody, I tend to help people when they need help, and I just kind of like that. It's because I think I've been extraordinarily lucky, and obviously people help me. And when I was 20 and thought I knew more than I did, they took my meetings, and you probably when I'd left, they were laughing, but they made themselves accessible. I mean, I think about myself when I was 21. I would have probably not been as kind as they were to me.
So I got about 5 more minutes left, but again, mentorship. Your mom and dad were amazing mentors in your life and business. I think you mentioned somebody back last time we talked. You round it up again. Your dad. When it comes to business and.
Oh my God, a lot of people. Obviously, my parents. My parents. There was a guy named Earl Neal. He was a lawyer here in Chicago, and he went out of his way to help, especially kind of young Black entrepreneurs from my generation. And he would make himself available and just be helpful and give you guidance and not ask for anything. I would say he was a mentor of mine, but you can also get mentorship by reading.
Yeah.
I probably have on my little iPhone 100 books that I've listened to, 150 podcasts. You can get mentorship just by reading, listening, watching.
Sure, no doubt about it. Well, hey, I got a little more out of this orange this time. We'll probably have to have another time, Robbie. This guy's awesome. I really appreciate our friendship, and I want to get to know you as a buddy for the last 50 years of our lives. We both got about 50 years left, right?
I'm with you, man.
So I want to do more stuff with you. So I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for that.
It's good.
Robbie, get out of this. What nuggets did Robbie get out of this? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Robert, so we usually like to summarize some of the takeaways and share them from all parts of the conversation. So first one that I got today was give 100% to be in the top 5%. And the way that I look at that is that hard work often is difficult to teach, but if you're able to instill that in an individual's personality, you have the potential to become world class. And I think Robert's a perfect example of that. The second is that reputation precedes you, and it's one of the few things in life that you don't have complete control over. So you need to make sure you live with high standards of yourself, both from an integrity standpoint, just as well as leading back to the first point, is making sure that you're devoted to demanding excellence of yourself. The third here is don't be impressed by wealth, be impressed by character. And I think that applies to almost every facet of life and business, but specifically, I think, to an HR process. I think there's elements to hiring and recruiting the right talent. And ultimately, what you need to hire for is the right culture and personality that facilitates the growth of the business. And the next one it was actually unique, super unique in my opinion, which was worry when everyone is riding high and be brave when people are panicking. And I think that obviously we're recognizing the impact of that right now, and it's ultra top of mind for everybody. But at the end of the day, there's a ton of validity behind that. And as we move forward, it's something, Gary, you and I should continue to think more about. And
yeah, absolutely, that's part of what we talk about. Complacency kills, and as a leader, you want to be on top of when things are really good. You want to be on top of how you invest in being different and stronger and world class, as Robert said, right? And when things are tough, you got to rise up, and it's time to rise up and lead and be bold then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the unique area here in the next takeaway for me was that in order to identify a space to innovate is to have an internal conversation with yourself if you believe there's a brand name or loyalty, and specifically in relation here to you realizing that Killer Spin had an awesome opportunity to innovate within the ping pong industry. And I think for future or young entrepreneurs out there right now, it's an interesting takeaway when you are trying to assess an entire market landscape of potential entrepreneurial endeavors is think to yourself, what industries right now don't have any brand loyalty, and how can you go in there and demand more value for your customers? And the last one is you can't have experimentation without failure. And I think that if you're going to constantly innovate and improve and take intelligent risks, then ultimately you need to make sure that you're willing to go the extra mile, and especially with your end client in mind.
The last thing I would say is just give advice to entrepreneurs: live way below your means. Live way below your means. There's going to be a tsunami coming that you can't see, a tornado, a hurricane, a flood, a stock market crash. You can't predict them, but you know they're going to happen. And if you're not prepared for them, you're going to get washed out to sea. So,
great point. Great point. When times are good, you tend to, you can either continue to roll the dice, invest forward, and keep investing those profits forward, or buying stuff for yourself, right? Or you can put some of that aside and make sure you're ready for the next coronavirus, right? Or whatever's going to challenge your business, the next competitor that comes in and does stuff for nothing, whatever it is. So great point. Robert, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
So good to talk to you.
You're awesome. Really appreciate
my best to the family.
You too, buddy. Appreciate your time today, and what a great episode of Ditch Digger CEO with our buddy Robert. Thank you, and have an awesome day, buddy.
Thank you, man. Take care. See you, Robbie and Chris.
See you, buddy. Another great episode of Ditch Digger CEO. See ya.